say good morning to the board member one of the board members of the National Council of Indian Culture, the NCIC, Dr. Visham Bhimull. He's actually on set with me. We would have had many a conversation via the Zoom line over the years. And when he stepped in, I said to myself, the man's presence and his whole demeanor and the dress code this morning, I thought I was talking to the commissioner to India, you know. The man, you're so regal this morning, as per usual.
I have aspirations to be within the consulate, trying to be going, promote trying to be go outside.
Well, look at that. Well, you know what? I just threw it into the atmosphere. Well, let's see. If we can land on some fertile soil.
We'll see.
But so great to see you, man, for the first time, you know, on set with me. Thanks for the accommodation. And I'm seeing all is in place for this week. I realize the theme, it's Mother Earth, you know, and we're not so much here to deal with the language part, because I know you would have dealt with that for a couple of programs in the past. I really want to get a little history behind the Diwali Nagar. From my information, I know it started around 1986, but I'm sure the seeds and the momentum was there even before that. Give me a little history about the Diwali Nagar.
Well, I actually became a member of the organization in 2010. Then I was in the youth arm, right? The Nagar, or the NCIC caters for people who might have aspirations towards contributing to Indian culture in that way. And then I was brought up onto the main executive. That's why I'm a board member now.
Around what time, around what year you came into the board?
2015, I believe.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, so it's 5 years after. I guess they would have seen my passion for Indian culture and language and all these things. And that's how eventually I became a member of the board. But so being part of the organization, obviously, well, you know how interested I am in language and history and things. I had done some research on the Diwali Nagar. You have to look at when the organization was actually formed in 1964. That's 2 years after independence. So that's a key pivotal point as to why it was formed then. And then the Black Power movement and the context within that and how it came out, where initially there was a stance by the two major ethnicities against the government, and then after it switched. So it was born out of that, but also born out of the fact that, well, Indian people were now, they move up the social ladder, financially well off, and they wanted to aspire towards looking back to India and looking back for their roots. It had changed a lot, because remember during the indentureship or pre-partition India, when the partition happened, which was the independence of India as well as separation of India and Pakistan, we were already out, and generations had already come down the line. With regard to that now, looking back to India, yes, it's a bit different, but it still is part of the same roots of descendants of indentured laborers. So the aspiration now is towards what we call Shastriya Sangeet, which is Indian classical music, and the representation here was local classical, or the folk reinterpretation of what that is. Some even say that the local classical we have here is pre-partition, and it was an earlier form of what is modern day Indian classical. That's actually one aspect of it. It's quite interesting. There was a key figure through the, that's why I mentioned consulate, because you could do a lot in the consulate, who had come to India, come to Trinidad, sorry, Professor Bhattacharya, and there were two stalwarts, Bisram Gopi and Nasalu Ramaya. Nasalu Ramaya was the violinist for the Naya Zamana Orchestra, and Bisram Gopi was from South. He used to organize the cane cutters and stuff. And they came together with Professor Bhattacharya, this would have been in the 60s, to say, well, let's start an organization linked to India that could empower people in their culture. So it started off then, the National Council of Indian Music and Drama, and then slowly evolved. Initially when it started, it was more for promoting music, local classical music, folk music, Shastriya Sangeet, and then...
Because there is power in the culture, you know, that cultural connection,
well,
very, very important.
The average Trinidadian don't realize, oh, at least though, not empowered in being Trinidadian. When I travel abroad, well, I can speak many languages, so usually I confuse people. But when I come out and speak Trini English, I take pride in that. Even speaking to my patients, I speak to them in that. Once as a medical student in San Fernando, and they said, "Say, doctor, you from Pinal?" I said, "Yeah, why you say that? Because how I talk."
Yeah.
She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, that's how my Aji used to talk, so I used to talk just like my Aji."
Yeah, yeah.
So the whole idea is that empowerment in who you are and how you speak.
Yeah.
A Trinidadian, how a Trinidadian would speak. They should take pride in that because it identifies who I am, and people seem to neglect that the way you express yourself is part of your identity that is quite unique. So Professor Bhattacharya, he was quite famous in Trinidad from India, and he used to do plays. Shakuntala was one play. He had gotten together with them, and I think it was the Todd's Road Mandir that started this organization. So this council started in South Trinidad, in San Fernando, and then shortly after that, they decided to diversify. They started to link with the High Commission of India, who started to cater to what their needs might be for local people of Indian origin. So there was Priya and Pratap Pawar, another set of people they brought, but this time to teach Indian dance, because in the earlier days and during internship, classical dance didn't come to Trinidad, and people really weren't educated in classical dance. They were in Guyana, and then through the High Commission here, they had asked for them to come to Trinidad. So all these people like Satbal Karan Singh and all the dancers who now teach classical Indian dance, these dancers who trained by Priya and Pratap Pawar.
So this is such an interesting history, and I'm a rare student of history here, so you totally got you totally got my attention here. Really transition from, I would say, 60s with the forming of the movement, that transition now into the NCIC, which transition into Diwali Nagar, which started in '86 at Mid-Center Mall, you said?
Yes, and that was the brainchild of Mr. Hans Hanuman Singh. At that time, he was the president. And I remember reading an article in one of these magazines. This is a magazine for this year, Dharti Mata.
Can I see it?
That's the theme for this year. Every year we have a commemoratory magazine.
And I'm sure, and we'll get to that later on, because I know certain decisions were made based on this year's theme.
Yeah,
we'll get to that to the end. So,
it started on his brainchild. He had imagined, I remember in the article, that Caribbean Airlines would serve a full local Indian meal, and you'd go to this Diwali Nagar, hearing the music and smelling the food and seeing the celebration. I guess I could kind of envisage that, because that's something I enjoy. I went to Hillview College, and at Hillview College, I was allowed to indulge in my Indian culture. We had Diwali programs, we had displays. I contributed a lot to display. At age 11, I learned to read and write Hindi. And I remember I took it as an opportunity to write what the artifacts were, Jata, Ukri Musar, and so. So I guess I was always inclined towards that. It was in '86, and a group had come from India to do a ballet. This was in Bharatnatyam dance. It stayed there for some years, and then you have to look at things within politics. After the Nar government came into, I think it was Professor Benzimaro who recently passed. He was a minister, and Winston Dukaran, and they were able to lobby for the council to get the lands that they got there.
In Chaguanas.
In Chaguanas, yeah. And I think it was in the 1991 or something it started there. And if people don't realize this, the street is named after Nasalu Ramaya in Hindi. Nasalu Ramaya Marg. Meaning Nasalu Ramaya Main Road. It used to be Endeavour Road before.
Yes, it's true. Let me ask you, on this side of the world, via the West, because I know obviously there are big celebrations also in Guyana, but would you say without a doubt we got the biggest, Trinidad and Tobago at least, so Trinidad, or the Diwali Nagar to be more specific, is it the biggest celebration on this side?
As far as I remember, yes. 10 years ago, obviously a lot of people pattern and are stakeholders with the NCIC, so they actually have similar events. But I think it's still the biggest, and it is one of the biggest brands of the National Council of Indian Culture that has persevered for years. So much so as an icon, because people actually plan their travel. Local Trinidadians who might have gone to England or Canada or USA, they actually come back for the Diwali Nagar. And the caliber of program on the stage, I guess, is one of the, I mean, we know the food booths and we know the clothes booths, and people want to go and shop. But there is 2 theaters. There is one to the main stage where there are grand performances.
Yes.
For Diwali specifically, and there's the folk theatre in the smaller, or the dome we call it, and that more caters towards the folk tradition that we would have. But there would be moving between the two stages where artists who had performed on the folk stage would get a chance to perform on the main stage. Because remember, the folk and the classical, they go parallel, but they still contribute to each other.
And what I'm happy about is the injection of youth. When we went last year, myself and Akeisha and the team, we had a chance to touch base with one of the members of the Youth Council. So there's continuity. There is that transferring of the responsibility and the whole message, as it were. So that's very important.
Succession planning. I am a result of that, because I started in a youth group, and I'm on the board, and I hope well, I mean, I try my best. This is a personal passion of mine. Why I am personally in this is because of my grandmother, who spoke Bhojpuri, and I grew up with her chulha, seke in the roti. My nana had cows. We drank cow milk since I was born in Kunubia. Yeah, so I don't know, they died probably a little bit too early, and I wanted to recapture who they were, which is my identity.
And it's so close to your heart. Before we wrap things up, anything new? I mean, I was looking at some of the developments, I guess, in keeping with the theme, Mother Earth, and looking after the creatures of the said earth. I know the fireworks, it's no more. Is it just going to be for this year, or is this going to be something ongoing with the no fireworks display towards the very end? Tell me about that particular decision.
I think, well, you're correct about why we went in that direction. The Hartima, climate change, the fact that we should care for wildlife as domestic animals. So this is, I myself see it as something that will carry through and continue, because it seems to be a pattern not here in Trinidad only, but in other places where there are animal rights activists and lobbyists that continue to lobby for no fireworks. So I think once that lobbying continues, I think this would also continue even Diwali Nagar.
Anything else we could look forward to? Any additions, any new elements to the experience this year compared to years gone by?
Yeah, this year with respect to, I mean, the architecture always changes and the theme always changes. Baba Maurya from India usually does an exhibition every year based on the theme. So what you're going to see when you enter would be effigies and images that allude to Mother Earth. And there's a big write-up inside which he did, which is quite important in Hinduism, that we teach our way of life, way of thinking. I mean, it's the same Jia they worship in Greek mythology. This is the same goddess in all the Indo-European civilizations, and the Vedic civilization is no exception. And you would see testimony to all that in the presentation.
Well, I want to say, Dr. Visham Bhimull, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for the history, walking us through it, and not only just the, the Diwali Nagar and its origins, but even before that with the cultural connection between India and Trinidad and Tobago. By all means, we look forward to seeing you again on the couch. I'm glad you made the effort to come here, and see you at the Nagar.
You as well.
Yes. Let me tell you, we will be there, I'm sure. Well, during the week, we'll work out the timing, and you'll get some of the action. It's always a tremendous one. CYTT, they're coming in next to tell us about their food drive, clothing drive, what's happening. Yeah, so CYTT with their food drive, we're looking for people to get involved. Full details after the break.